Okay, let's jump right in. We're taking a deep dive today into 2 Corinthians chapter 3.
Mm-hmm.
And it really hits you with this core question almost immediately. When we think about, impact or maybe ministry, what really validates it?
Right. Is it the external stuff, the credentials, the letters?
Exactly, the kind you can show people. Or is it something, well, deeper, more internal?
And the text just flips that expectation. It says,
Yeah.
wait a minute, you, the people, you are letter.
Yeah, written on our hearts, it says, known and read by everybody.
It's radical, really. The validation is the transformed lives. They are the letter.
It's not ink on paper or even those famous stone tablets.
No, it's written by the Spirit of the living God.
Right, not on tablets of stone, but on tablets of human hearts. So the actual letter isn't something you carry around.
It's the result, the visible outcome of the Spirit's work in people through people.
And the text adds that the confidence for this kind of work, it comes through Christ, before God.
Yeah, because our competence, our ability isn't from us. It makes that very clear.
It comes from God. He makes us competent.
Which leads straight into this really sharp contrast the chapter draws out. It mentions a new covenant.
One that God has made us competent to minister.
Exactly. And it's a covenant not of the letter, but of the Spirit.
And then you get that incredibly powerful line.
For the letter kills, but the Spirit gives life.
Okay, hold on. The letter kills. That sounds, well, pretty stark. What's that about? What is it killing?
Well, the text connects that letter directly back to the Old Covenant, the law etched in stone.
The Ten Commandments and all that followed.
Yes, and it calls it a ministry that brought death. Now, that's not because the law itself was bad.
No, it revealed God's standard perfectly.
Precisely. But in doing so, it exposed sin and our complete inability to meet that standard on our own. It led to condemnation.
Which is a kind of spiritual death.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
But the Spirit brings life. It empowers righteousness, connects us to God's life.
Right, and it's fascinating. The text points out that even that old ministry, the letter on stone that condemned, it still had glory.
A lot of glory. Remember Moses, he had to wear a veil.
Because his face was radiant after being with God, and people couldn't bear to look, even though that radiance was temporary. It was fading.
Exactly. And that's the kicker. If that ministry, the one associated with death and fading glory, still had glory,
then how much more glorious must the ministry of the Spirit be, the one that brings righteousness and life?
infinitely more. The text says the old glory basically has no glory now when you compare it to this surpassing glory.
The fading versus the permanent.
Yes, lasting glory.
And knowing this, having this hope in something permanent and glorious, it gives boldness, right? We don't need a veil like Moses.
We don't need to hide a fading reality. But the text does talk about another kind of veil.
Yes. Under the old system, it says people's minds were dulled. A veil stayed over their hearts when the scriptures were read.
And it says the veil's still there for some because it's only in Christ is it taken away.
Even today, when Moses is read, that veil can cover hearts.
But, and this is the crucial turn, whenever anyone turns to the Lord, the veil is taken away.
And it clarifies, now the Lord is the Spirit.
And where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom.
Freedom. Okay, what kind of freedom are we talking about here? Break that down a bit.
Well, fundamentally, freedom from the condemnation the letter brought. Freedom from that spiritual blindness, that veil.
And freedom to approach God.
Yes, directly, boldly. And with this freedom, we can stand with unveiled faces.
Right, unveiled faces, reflecting the Lord's glory, almost like mirrors.
And not just reflecting passively, we're also being transformed into his likeness with ever-increasing glory.
And that transformation, that increasing glory, it comes from the Lord.
Who is the Spirit. It all circles back.
So for you listening, this really challenges us, doesn't it? What does it mean for your life to be one of these letters from Christ, read by everyone around you?
Yeah, and how can you tell the difference in your own approach or in others? When is something just rule following, the letter, maybe even something that brings a kind of death?
Versus something genuinely flowing from the Spirit. Something bringing life, freedom, that real transformation.
It's a crucial discernment.
Which leaves us with this final thought to ponder. The text gives us this stark principle. The letter kills, but the Spirit gives life. How might you see that idea playing out, maybe for good or bad, in areas of life totally outside this chapter's specific context? Think about that.